Some stories just don't have an ending. They hit a brick wall and leave this huge question mark just hanging there, sometimes for centuries. Today, we are diving headfirst into one of the biggest, most persistent mysteries in American history. What in the world happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke?
Okay, so picture this. It's 1590. The governor, a guy named John White, finally gets to sail back to his colony on Roanoke Island after being stuck in England for 3 long years. He and his crew step ashore, expecting a happy reunion, but they find nothing. Literally nothing. No people, no bodies, no signs of a fight, just silence. An empty, abandoned town.
The only thing they find is this, a single word, carved deep into a wooden post of the fort's fence. Croatoan. That's it. One word. And that one word has kicked off over 400 years of theories, searches, and straight-up speculation.
And that's the core of it, right? Where did they all go? 115 people. Vanished. Was this word a clue, or was it some kind of warning? To even begin to unpack the mystery, we've got to back up and understand what they were even doing there in the first place. See, this wasn't just a bunch of folks looking for a fresh start. The Roanoke colony was a power move, a big, bold statement by England, basically challenging Spain's total dominance of the New World. It was a high-stakes gamble.
Back in 1584, Queen Elizabeth I gave her favorite courtier, Sir Walter Raleigh, a charter with these words. It was basically a green light from the Queen to go claim a piece of America for England. But there was a catch. He had a deadline. He had to set up a colony by 1591 or he'd lose his chance. The clock was seriously ticking.
And the location, Roanoke, was chosen very carefully. It was a 2-for-1 deal. First, it would be England's first real foothold in North America. And second, it was perfectly placed to be a base for English privateers, legal pirates really, to attack and raid all those Spanish ships loaded with treasures sailing back to Europe. It was meant to be a real thorn in Spain's side.
Now, here's a twist a lot of people don't know. The famous Lost Colony, the one with the families and all that, it wasn't the first try. Oh no. Before them, there was another attempt, a purely military one. And spoiler alert, it was a total disaster. So let's just get this straight, because it's key. The 1585 attempt was an all-male military outpost. Think soldiers, forts, and looking for fights. But the 1587 colony, the one we're all here for, was completely different. It was led by an artist, John White, and it was all about building a real city with families and putting down roots. 2 totally different missions, both of which ended terribly.
Man, that first try was just a masterclass in how not to start a colony. The soldiers immediately picked fights with the local tribes. They actually burned down a village because they thought someone stole a silver cup. A silver cup! By 1586, they were starving, so when the famous Sir Francis Drake sailed by, they all just bailed and hitched a ride home. And the kicker? A relief ship showed up just a few weeks later, found the place empty, and left 15 guys there to hold down the fort.
So you'd think after that spectacular failure, Raleigh would just call it a day. But nope, he doubled down. He decided, okay, this time we do it differently. No more hungry, angry soldiers. This time we build a real town. A new beginning for England.
115. That's how many people signed up for round 2. And this is the crucial part. It wasn't just men this time. There were 17 women and 9 children in that group. These were families, weavers, farmers, people coming to build a life in the city of Raleigh.
And their new leader was John White. Remember him? He was the artist on that first disastrous trip, the one who painted all those amazing watercolors of the landscape and the native people. This time, he wasn't just an observer. He was the governor, and he had a vision for a real working community.
And this is where the story gets so much more personal and, honestly, so much more tragic. Just a few weeks after they land, John White's own daughter gives birth to a little girl, Virginia Dare, the very first English child born in the Americas. Can you just imagine the sense of hope? A new life, a symbol for their new world. But that hope, yeah, it didn't last long at all. When they arrived, they found the fort abandoned. No sign of those 15 men that were left behind, except for the skeleton of one man. It was a bad omen from day one, and things were about to get so much worse. So everything starts to go wrong. The ship's captain basically dumps them on the same doomed Roanoke Island instead of taking them further north like they planned.
Supplies are already running low, so the colonists all get together and beg White to go back to England for more provisions. He hates the idea, but he agrees, leaving behind his daughter and his brand new granddaughter. He promised he'd be back as fast as he could.
He was gone for 3 years. Just let that sink in. 3 years. Imagine being one of those colonists. You're expecting a resupply ship in a few months, maybe a year tops, and instead you get nothing. Silence. For 3 years. You're completely cut off from your entire world. So, what happened?
Well, the fate of this tiny little colony got swallowed whole by world events. Spain decided to invade England with its massive, so-called Invincible Armada. It was an all-hands-on-deck crisis. Every single English ship, every sailor, was pulled into the war effort to defend the homeland. And little Roanoke? They were on their own. Completely and utterly forgotten.
Which brings us right back to the beginning of our story. It's 1590. The war is over. John White has been fighting for years to get a ship, and he finally does. He's heading back to America, back to his family.
He lands and finds the place fortified with a big defensive wall around it. But the houses have been carefully taken down, not smashed or burned. It doesn't look like there was a battle. It looks like everyone just packed up and moved. And then he sees it, the carving.
Now, to us, Croatoan might sound mysterious, but to John White, it meant something very specific. Croatoan was an island not too far away. We call it Hatteras Island today. And more importantly, it was the home of the Croatoan people, a Native American tribe who were friendly with the English. In fact, their leader had been to England and was a trusted ally.
So for White, this was actually good news. He wasn't confused, he was relieved. See, they had a plan. They agreed that if they had to leave Roanoke, they would carve their destination into a post. And crucially, they agreed to carve a Maltese cross above the name if they were in danger. There was no cross. This was a message that they had moved and that they were safe.
And this is the final, heartbreaking twist. White is ready to go. He's ready to sail just 50 miles south to Croatoan Island and find his family. But before they can leave, a monster storm, probably a hurricane, slams into them. It damages the ships so badly that the crew refuses to go on. They force him to turn around and sail back to England. He never got another chance. He never saw his family or America ever again.
So what really happened? Well, for centuries, the most accepted theory is that they did exactly what the carving said. They went to live with their allies, the Croatoans. They likely assimilated, intermarried, and became part of the tribe. And you know, there's actually evidence for this. Archaeologists have found English stuff in nearby native villages from that time, and some modern tribes even have oral histories that trace their ancestry back to those colonists. Of course, there are other theories. Maybe a different tribe attacked them, or they got sick, or tried to sail home and were lost at sea.
But in the end, we're left with that one word, Croatoan. Was it a message of survival, a signpost pointing to a new life? Or was it an epitaph for 115 men, women, and children who stepped off the map and into the American wilderness and were never seen again? It remains America's oldest and most haunting unsolved mystery.